Here you see a 6-inch by 9-foot porch post that we turned. On top of it lays the piece it's replacing. We're going to give you a quick rundown on just what we use to do this. We'll start with this lathe. It's a big one. A bunch of different tool rests. A 5-foot rest, a 4-foot, a 2-foot, a 7-inch tool rest, 2 bowl steadies, a 6-inch center steady, and the tools: an 1 3/4 roughing gouge, a 1/4-inch parting tool, a 9/16 spindle gouge, a 1-inch skew, a 1/2-inch detail gouge, and a fluted parting tool. Now, I'm not saying that this can't be done without all this stuff, because it can, and I have. But this setup keeps you well within the limits of common sense and safety. This isn't a chair spindle, and trust me, if something goes wrong here, it's not pretty. So let's go. Set up the 5-foot tool rest and part off the section to be turned and take it down a little. And then we'll do the rounded shoulders. Use the skew for this. I know you can't even see this cut, but I'm really not faking it here. Anyway, this is what it'll look like after your first stab at it, and we'll clean that up later. We've turned this down some, so we'll set the 4-foot tool rest in a little closer and bring it down all the way to round. This is the first detail we'll do. It's the bottom end of the post. 3 pretty simple beads in 2 sizes. You can see we've parted these off, and we're going to turn them down with the spindle gouge. Just a little at a time till we get to the right diameter. We've put some of this in double time to move things along a little bit. Here we mark the high spot on the big bead with a pencil and begin forming the bead with the skew. We'll do most of this large bead with the spindle gouge because it's so much faster. Then we'll finish up with the skew. Then we move on to the smaller beads. As you see here, it's important to learn to use both hands in turning. Now we're working with a 2-foot tool rest to get this taper turned down to where it should be. And we're going to cut a channel where we'll put our center steady. We just used the bowl steadies to keep the post from chattering too much until we got to a diameter where we could use our center steady. I know it doesn't seem like such a big piece of wood could chatter, but it does, and steadies are necessary. So we'll just keep going with the roughing gouge till we get pretty close to the correct diameter. Then we'll use the spindle gouge the rest of the way because it cuts so much cleaner. Then we'll move on to the next detail, which is at the top of the post. This mixes in different beads in different sizes and depths with a big deep cove. And we'll just part these off and bring them close to dimension. Then, like before, more shear cutting with the skew will bring these into shape. Again, you see how important it is to be able to switch hands. Then we mark off with a pencil where that big cove begins, and then cut our half bead right up to that spot. Move over to the top of the long tapered shaft and round that down, and then get the smaller bead next to it. Then we use the skew upside down to incise the outline of the small double bead at the top of the shaft. And then we finish forming those beads with the skew. Turning our attention to the big cove again, we use the detail gouge to cut this. The proper way to use a detail gouge for this is to lay it on its side, like so. You start your cut at the top and slowly push your backhand to the left. You have to stay with the cut all the way. Then we'll just finish tapering the shaft down. We finish this piece off by mounting the 7-inch tool rest like so. Here we do use the skew to scrape the shoulders, just blending the square section with our shear cut. So there you have it. We use 40 and 60 grit sandpaper on the shoulders and also the tapered shaft. And then we bring in 80 and 120 grit on the whole piece, details and all. And that's how it's done.